Interaction Toolkit. The recommended way to handle XR input in Unity is the XR Interaction Toolkit. It provides a high-level, intuitive system for managing interactions and input. It abstracts away much of the lower-level input handling, making development faster and easier. Input actions. The XR Interaction Toolkit relies on input actions. These are defined in an input action asset and represent logical actions in your VR experience, e.g., grab, teleport, select. You define the actions and then map them to specific hardware inputs, buttons, joysticks, triggers, within the input action asset. Within an action map, you bind your input actions to specific hardware inputs. For Oculus devices, this typically includes pink, primary button, AX, often used for selection or interaction, blue. Secondary button, BY, can be used for secondary actions or menu navigation, green. Grip button, usually used for grabbing or holding objects, yellow. Trigger, often used for pointing, shooting, or activating tools. Purple, thumbstick, joystick, used for movement, rotation, or menu navigation. Thumbstick, click, can be used for additional actions. Let's reflect on what we have learned so far. This is an introduction of the XR Interaction Toolkit, XRI, as Unity's native solution for implementing VR, AR, and MR interactions across multiple platforms. XRI allows developers to use the same components and methods regardless of the headset being used, making it easier to develop cross-platform VR applications. To set up and import for the project, follow these steps. 1. Creating a new Unity project. Instructions are provided for opening Unity Hub, creating a new project using the latest LTS version of Unity 2021, specifically version 2021 3.10, selecting the 3D URP template and naming the project XRI. 2. Configuring build settings for Quest 2. The speaker explains how to access build settings, select Android for Quest 2, and make necessary adjustments such as setting texture compression to ASTC and switching the platform, which requires re-importing project assets. 3. Project settings optimization. Detailed instructions are given for optimizing project settings, including changing the graphics API to Vulkan, setting the minimum Android API level to 23, configuring the scripting backend to IL2 CPP, and setting the target architecture to ARM64 only. 4. Removing performance detrimental components. The speaker demonstrates how to remove the screen space ambient occlusion component from the URP balanced renderer to improve frame rate performance on Quest devices. 5. Installing XR-specific packages. Instructions are provided for accessing the package manager, installing the XR plugin manager package, and enabling Unity's new input system, which requires a restart of the Unity editor. Let's watch a video demonstrating the import and setup of the Unity project. In this part, we cover the basics of using Unity's XR Interaction Toolkit. We can begin working with the project sample scene. Follow these steps to set up a XR rig in the project. Phase 1. Scene Setup. 1. Remove unnecessary objects. Delete the main camera and global volume from the scene. 2. Create floor. Add a plane object to the scene at position 0, 0, 0. 3. Create plinth. Add a cube object. Position it slightly forward from the origin and stretch it along the x-axis. 4. Color plinth. Create a materials folder in your assets. Create a new material within the folder and assign a color different from the floor. Drag the new material onto the cube in the scene view. Phase 2. XR Rig Setup. 1. Add XR Origin. Right-click in the hierarchy, select XR, then select XR Origin, Action-Based. Ensure it's at position 0, 0, 0. 2. Set Tracking Origin Mode. In the XR Origins Inspector, set Tracking Origin Mode to Floor. 3. Test Initial Setup. Connect your VR headset, enter Play Mode, and test the basic VR view. You should see the scene in the headset, but no controllers will be visible yet. Phase 3. Controller Setup. 1. Import Starter Assets. Go to Window, select Package Manager, find XR Interaction Toolkit, expand Samples, and import Starter Assets. 2. Configure Left-Hand Controller. Select the left-hand controller in the hierarchy. In the XR Controller component in the Inspector, click the middle preset icon, Sliders. Choose XRI Default Left Controller. 3. Configure the right-hand controller the same as the left hand. Phase 4. Input Action Management. 1. Add Input Action Manager. Add an Input Action Manager component to the XR Origin object. 2. Assign input actions. Asset. In the Input Action Manager's Inspector, click the plus to add an action asset slot. Click the target icon in the slot. Select XRI Default Input Actions. Phase 5. Final Test. 1. Test with controllers. Enter Play Mode again. You should now see red pointers tracking your VR controller's movements and positions in the scene. Let's watch a video demonstrating setting up the XR rig in the Unity project. Let's reflect on what we have learned so far. Here's a summarized step-by-step breakdown of the concepts explained. 1. XR Interaction Manager. Role. Acts as the intermediary between interactors and interactables, determining which interactors are influencing which interactables. Crucial for XR interactions to function. Location. automatically added to the scene when you add an XR origin. 2. Interactors. Role. Components attached to game objects that act upon interactive objects, interactables. Typically attached to virtual representations of controllers or hands. Example, the left-hand controller and right-hand controller objects in your XR origin. 3. Interactables. Role. Components attached to game objects that act upon interactive objects, interactables. Typically attached to virtual representations of controllers or hands. Example, objects in your scene that you want the player to pick up or interact with. 4. Input Action Manager. Role. Automatically enables or disables inputs contained within a referenced input actions asset. Location. Attached to the XR origin. Asset. Uses an input actions asset, e.g., CXIA default input actions, to define and manage input actions. 5. Input actions. Role. Separate the logical meaning of an input, e.g., fire, from the physical means of input, e.g., pressing a mouse button. This abstraction allows for flexibility in supporting different input devices. Structure. Organized into action maps. Groupings of related actions, the logical inputs, and bindings, the connection between actions and physical inputs. Example, the CXIA left-hand interaction. Action map contains actions like select for grabbing, which is bound to a specific button on the controller. CXIA head contains position and rotation actions for the headset. 6. XR controller components. Role. These components on the controller objects reference the same input actions asset used by the Input Action Manager. This links the controller inputs to the defined actions. Location. Attached to the left-hand controller and right-hand controller objects within the XR origin. Let's watch a video demonstrating the action-based input systems. Previously, we completed simple VR scene, XR rig setup, action-based input system integration, creating controller models. Create a prefabs folder in your project assets. Create an empty prefab named controller model within the folder. Open the controller model prefab. Create a cube, handle, and a cylinder, pad, as children of the controller model. Adjust the position and scale of the handle and pad to resemble a controller. Create a materials folder in your project assets. Create a new material named Controller Material. Set the controller material color to black and disable Receive Shadows. Apply the controller material to both the handle and pad in the controller model prefab. Exit the controller model prefab view. 2. Removing ray interaction components from right hand. Select the right-hand controller in the hierarchy. Remove the XR ray interactor, XR interactor line visual, and line renderer components. 3. Instantiating controller models. Select the right-hand controller. Create an empty game object as a child of right-hand controller and name it Model Parent. Zero out its position and rotation. Drag the controller model prefab into the model prefab slot of the right-hand controller's XR controller component. Drag the model parent game object into the model parent slot of the XR controller component. Repeat steps for the left-hand controller. 4. Setting up grab interaction. Right hand. Select the right-hand controller. Add a sphere collider component. Set the sphere collider's is trigger to true and adjust the radius to 0.05. Open the controller model prefab. Remove the box collider from the handle and the capsule collider from the pad. Turn off cast shadows in the mesh renderer component of both the handle and the pad. Exit the controller model prefab view. Select the right-hand controller and add an XR direct interactor component. 5. Creating a grabbable object. Right-click in the hierarchy and select XR, then select Grab Interactable. This creates a cube with an XR Grab Interactable component. Position the Grab Interactable cube as desired. 6. Testing the interaction. Enter play mode. Grab the Grab Interactable cube by touching it with the right-hand controller and pressing the grip button. Release the grip button to drop the cube. Let's watch a video demonstrating the action-based input systems. We are covering the XR Direct Interactor component in Unity's XR Interaction Toolkit, focusing on how it enables near-field interactions. Here's a summarized, step-by-step breakdown. Understanding interactors and interactables. The XR Interaction Toolkit uses the concept of interactors, like virtual hands controllers, acting upon interactables, objects you can interact with. 2. Examining the XR Direct Interactor. Locate the component. In the Unity editor, find your right-hand controller game object within the XR origin in the hierarchy. It should have an XR Direct Interactor component attached. This component enables direct touch-based interactions. 2. Interaction Manager. The Interaction Manager mediates interactions. It's usually created automatically with the XR origin. While referencing it in the XR Direct Interactor isn't strictly required, it's good practice. 3. Interaction Layer. Mask. This allows you to control which interactors can interact with which interactables. Steps to use Interaction Layer. Mask. Select the interactable object, e.g. your cube. In its XR Grab interactable component, right-click the Interaction Layer mask and select Add Layer. In the inspector, under Interaction Layers, create a new layer, e.g. Pickups. Set the Interactables Interaction Layer mask to only the Pickups layer. Select the interactor, e.g. right-hand controller. Set its Interaction Layer mask to only the Pickups layer, or default for other objects. This makes the right hand interact only with objects on the Pickups layer. Repeat for the left-hand controller, setting it to the default layer. Create a second cube and leave its Interaction Layer mask set to default. Test in play mode. The right hand should only be able to interact with the cube on the Pickups layer. 4. Attach. Transform. This defines the point on the controller where grabbed objects attach. Steps to use Attach Transform. Create an empty game object as a child of your controller, e.g. attach point. Position the attach point where you want objects to attach. Drag the attach point game object into the Attach Transform slot of the XR Direct Interactor component. 5. Select Action Trigger. Determines how the select action, usually the grip button, triggers grabbing. Modes: State, Default. Grabs while the button is held and the controller intersects. State changed. Grabs only when the button is pressed while intersecting. Toggle. Grabs on the first press, releases on the next. Sticky. Similar to toggle, but requires 2 releases to detach. 6. Keep selected target valid. Usually leave this as true for grabbing. Determines if the selection is maintained, even if the target is no longer valid. 7. Hide controller on select. Hides the controller when an object is grabbed. 8. Allow hover. Activate. Allows activation of an interactable by hovering, touching, without grabbing. 9. Starting. Selected interactable. Automatically selects a specified interactable on startup. Use with toggle or sticky. Select action trigger to prevent immediate dropping. 3. Testing and further exploration. Test your interactions in play mode. Let's watch a video demonstrating the action-based input systems. This step-by-step summary provides a clear guide to using the XR Grab interactable component. Project setup and updates. Update Unity to the latest LTS version. Update XR-related packages, XR Interaction Toolkit, via the Package Manager. Re-import starter assets if needed. 2. Controller Model Swap. Optional. Replace the simple VR controller models with the more sophisticated ones from the starter assets. Locate the XR controller left and XR controller right prefabs in the Assets, Samples, XR Interaction Toolkit, Starter Assets, Prefabs Controllers folder. In the hierarchy, select the left-hand controller. In the XR controller component, drag the XR controller left prefab into the model prefab slot. Repeat for the right-hand controller. 3. XR Grab Interactable Component. Breakdown. Select the interactable. In the hierarchy, select the object you want to make grabbable, e.g., your cube. Interaction Manager and Layer Mask. These properties are the same as in the XR Direct Interactor and are covered in previous tutorials. Colliders. The colliders list specifies which colliders on the interactable trigger interaction. If the list is empty, all colliders on the interactable and its children are used. Steps to add a collider. Drag the collider component from the interactable object to the colliders list. Distance calculation mode determines how distance is calculated between interactor and interactable. Options, from fastest to most accurate. Transform position, collider position, collider volume. See Unity documentation for details. Custom reticle. A 3D object that appears at the end of array interactor when it hits the interactable. Steps to add a reticle. Drag a 3D object into the custom reticle slot. Select mode. Single. Only one interactor can grab the object at a time. Multiple. Multiple interactors can grab the object simultaneously. Focus. Mode. Gaze. Configuration. Enables interaction via gaze, looking at the object. Requires a gaze interactor. Movement type. Crucial for how the interactable behaves when grabbed. Instantaneous. Tracks the controller directly. No latency can pass through colliders. Kinematic. Moved via physics. Slight lag can pass through colliders. Velocity tracking. Velocity and angular velocity are set. Realistic physics. Collides with objects. Retain transform. Parent. If enabled, the interactable reattaches to its original parent after being dropped. Track position, rotation. Allows you to control whether the interactable tracks the controller's position and/or rotation. Smoothing can be applied. Throw on detach. Enables throwing the object by applying velocity on release. Various parameters control the throw velocity. Attach. Transform. Defines the point on the interactable where it attaches to the interactor. Steps to use attach transform. Create an empty game object on the interactable, e.g., attach point. Position the attach point where you want the object to attach. Drag the attach point game object into the attach transform slot of the XR Grab interactable component. Grab transformers and interactable events. 4. Testing. Test your interactions in play mode. Let's watch a video demonstrating the action-based input systems. Let's reflect on what we have learned so far.